Welcome to Blueprints and Barriers, Decoding Affordable Housing Policy in New Jersey. I'm your host, Lisa Allen, and this series is sponsored by Jersey First. This is a 5-part educational series examining affordable housing policy in New Jersey. From its historical foundation through the fourth-round mandates and what lies ahead, we're bringing together experts, elected officials, policymakers, and stakeholders from across the state to discuss opportunities and policy impacts of the housing mandates. Our goal is to inform, to spark dialogue and explore solutions tailored to each community's unique needs rather than relying on a one-size-fits-all answer. Overdevelopment is a hot topic across the Garden State, and no one feels these impacts more directly than our local mayors. Today, I'm joined by 3 seasoned leaders from across New Jersey, each with unique experiences navigating the balance between growth, affordability, and preserving the character of their communities. Our first guest today is Mayor Mark Taylor. He is a lifelong resident of Florham Park who has proudly served the community for nearly 2 decades. First elected to council in 2006, Mark went on to become council president, and in 2013, he was elected mayor, a role that he has now held for the past 12 years. Recently re-elected to his 4th term, he continues to focus on planning, zoning, affordable housing, and preserving open space for the residents of Florham Park. Our second guest is Mayor Jason Karr of Morris Plains. He began his public service as a councilman in 2008 and was elected to mayor in 2019. He is a lifelong resident in the town he serves, graduating from the local public schools. In addition to his role as mayor, he also held several leadership positions during his time as a member of the Morris Minutemen EMS. Professionally, Mayor Karr brings over 31 years of experience in the heavy construction industry, focusing on project and personnel management. Today, he parlayed that experience working for the town of Morristown while continuing his role as mayor of Morris Plains. And our third guest is Mayor Jason Cilento, a lifelong Dunellen resident. He was first elected to the Borough Council at age 20, later serving as council president and becoming mayor in 2020. With a focus on infrastructure, redevelopment, and environmental initiatives, he has secured over $8 million in grants, attracted over $170 million in downtown investment, led major planning efforts, advocated for transit improvements, and currently serves as the president of the New Jersey Conference of Mayors. Mayor Cilento is known for community engagement, accessibility, and sustainability. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming today. It is such a pleasure to have you sitting here and talking about such an important topic around this state. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for having us. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you to Jersey First for all their efforts as well on the same topic. I think you wanted to know a little bit about what we did or how we did it. I have been a lifelong resident of Florham Park, decided to move to a different house in the same town, and discovered that there was going to be some construction behind my house. I started going to council meetings to find out what was going on. They wouldn't tell me.
Oh.
So I had to go to the library and figure out what was going on, and I found out that under Oprah of the state of New Jersey, you can find this information out. Well, I became a bothersome person at the council meetings, so they decided to put me on to the council. I was served on the council for about 7 or 8 years, and then our former mayor decided with his change in jobs that he needed to move on, so I became mayor, ran that year in 2013 for my first post as mayor, have been mayor ever since. I love our community as well. I am a vice president of our company that I work for my real life, and do a lot of work outside the state of New Jersey as well as inside the state of New Jersey for that business model as well. So it's really a kind of mixture of 2 jobs. I call this one my 5 to 9 job.
Yeah,
so
it's amazing to me that mayors actually have full-time jobs, because being a mayor is truly a full-time job.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
So.
And I love that you got started because there was an issue that compelled you. I mean, I feel like that's really kind of what gets people motivated. How about you, Mayor?
Well, my grandfather used to be involved in local politics, and like you noted, I'm a lifelong Dunellen resident. And we decided to stay there because it's a great little community. So my wife and I are raising our daughter, Kennedy June. And I got involved, like I said, because my grandfather was involved in local politics. We might not have seen eye to eye on politics, but nonetheless, he was an inspiration to get involved. And like you noted, I ran at 20, and I got elected. And the main reason was because I saw great potential in our community. It could be something greater than what it was. I felt like it got a little stagnant. Dunellen historically has that 1920s quaint little downtown feel. And with the rise of the malls and the highways in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, unfortunately, what happened to our downtown was Main Street became absent street, vacancies, or, businesses that were not sustaining long enough. And so my goal running for council and then eventually as mayor was to create an economic development goal and vision for the community, especially because we're around the train station. And have had over $175 million in investments since 2020. Pre that, we had a $100 million project underneath my predecessor, Bob Cedar. And so the reasoning for what we're doing is for economic growth and to bring back rateables to our downtown, bring back businesses to our downtown around our train station. But there's always a boundary you don't want to pass, and our goal is through smart growth development, make sure that our density and the development and growth we see makes sense for that quaint charm that Dunellen has historically had. And so I look forward to talking to you about some of the successes we've had and getting to be on the panel with these two great guys.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Mayor
It's
Karr?
a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation. Again, sitting here with these gentlemen is quite an honor, so thank you, everybody, for being here. And I had an issue in town. I grew up in town, like you had said, and then I had an issue in town, and somebody suggested go to a council meeting, similar to Mr. Taylor there. Went to a council meeting, kind of got the lay of the land, finally got enough gall to ask a question at one council meeting, and I asked that question, and I got a very reasonable answer, right? And I said, oh, geez, I never thought about that. That makes perfect sense. And ever since then, I got the bug. So somebody pushed me and urged me a little bit. A friend of mine, he said, you should run if you like this. And so I did. I lost by 100 votes the first time. I said, 100 votes, I have to do this again. I did it again, and I won by 100 votes. And I've loved every minute of being on the council for 11 years. I was head of finance and on the finance committee for that entire 11 years. So I really think that seasoned me for mayor. I precede, actually the mayor that was before me was a 32-year mayor.
Wow.
So huge shoes to fill. But got over that hump, and he stepped down. I ran and was opposed, and I won as for mayor. So this is my second term as mayor, 7th year. I love everything I do, preserving the downtown and the quaint look. Morris Plains has always been unique, and try to keep it that way, along with seeing changes that are coming every day, right? Whether it's building or industry or different kind of stores or warehousing, whatever it is. So every day is a challenge. Every day is different. I do have a full-time job in town of Morristown, but mayor certainly is a full-time, part-time job, right? And you put as much time as you possibly can, and that's every single day. So I couldn't be happier or more proud to be a mayor in the town that I grew up in, and really see it preserved and growing at the same time. So.
For the two of you, not you so much, Jason, we'll get to you, but for the two of you being in politics, I guess 2004, 2006, how has it evolved over the last, 10, 15 years? Because our political environment has changed a lot.
It sure has.
For me, it's been night and day. Really, since I became mayor, there's been a light switch that's been turned on or off, however you want to call it. Everything now seems to be politicized. We're at the local level. I never saw that. And, how can you turn a stop sign into politics, or plowing the roads into politics, or spending money that's beneficial for the town into politics? But I feel like that has really come to light. And there's real division there, and I really never thought that it would come down from the national level, we'll say, all the way down here to small-town politics. But it certainly has, and I hope it does reverse, and it'll make everybody's life and job a little more easy. So.
Yeah.
I think the same, and the advent of what I call adult coloring book, or Facebook, as some would like to call it, has really amped up that. People became the keyboard warriors who could go on and say that, boy, that mayor is doing a terrible job because he allowed that development. He's friends with the builder. He's done this to help them. every single project in our town that we have done for the affordable housing aspect, many more that we have done as well, but for the affordable housing aspect, we have culled down what they wanted to build. They always come in with this grandioso plan of we're going to build 20 units per acre, or we allow 8 units per acre in our master plan. So we have always been the council of no, the planning board of let's make it work. And I've served on the planning board since 2005, so I know the ins and outs of every single development that comes before us. So I think that it's unfair for people to make judgment on people who are A, volunteers, and B, giving their blood, their life to the town to try and make it right, even though we have these mandates by the state and by Fair Share Housing to build affordable housing.
Yeah.
Well, I was
You're
just
next.
going to piggyback off of what was said. I think it's important for constituents to remember that we're your neighbors, right? So we live and work the issues that you are living yourself as our constituents and neighbors. And so whatever comes out from under that golden dome down in Trenton, we're forced as the mayors bipartisanly to enforce that when they're unfunded mandates, as you noted. And so I think it's important for residents to know at the local level, mayors and their councils have to be pragmatic leaders in our approach to governing. And so it's important to remember that you can find us in aisle 8 of the grocery store. You don't need to find us on Facebook. You can find us by coming up to a council meeting, or we're going to be knocking on your door when you first move into town, or every year when we're canvassing for an election. We're your neighbors. And so I think it's very important that what that highlights is the importance of local government over even state and federal government. It's a lot of the issues that we face are nonpartisan. And as the president of the New Jersey Conference of Mayors, as you noted earlier, we are a bipartisan organization of mayors that really look at the issues bipartisanly and how we can hold those in Trenton and at the federal level accountable for the reckless, at times, legislation that they're forcing upon our municipalities. So all things are local in my view, and I think these guys agree too.
Yeah.
I think that the word of the century is that mayors do matter.
Yeah.
And guiding our town in a responsible method is much more important than the reckless mandates that we receive from Trenton and or Fair Share Housing, whereas they're not really coming down to our level and really seeing what's going on. And we as mayors and our council people as well have got to get through that process, try and figure out what's best for us. We have many professionals, all of us, behind the scenes, whether it be a planner, our engineer staff, our zoning officials, who are all working hand in hand with us to try and do the right thing for affordable housing, as well as do the right thing for our town.
Yeah.
So if I can just piggyback, one thing that I can say is now that people are seeing all this development that kind of is coming from the third round, right? You see hundreds of these apartments and complexes going up. We as mayors get the questions. How come you didn't stop this? Or what's going on? Or how come? But this has been a 10-mile or 10-year journey, rather, to get to these points. But now that people are seeing the traffic impacts, the huge 4- and 5-story buildings in our little neighborhoods and little towns, people's eyes are really starting to open. But they're pointing fingers. And, me personally, we fought the third round for 8 years. We fought it. Hundreds of thousands of dollars we spent of taxpayers' money to fight it, and like Mark said, calm down the amount that was going in.
And to keep in mind, sorry to interrupt, but you might be in a better position than smaller towns like Dunellen who don't have the means to economically fight the big guy upstairs, right?
Yeah.
Down in Trenton.
Very lucky.
So we were one of the first towns in Middlesex County going into the third round that we settled. And so, because we don't have the means to fight them, we don't have the economic resources, and there's a little thing, the mayors have to implement with their councils really what's coming down from the state, and there's this thing we fear called the builder's remedy, and losing our zoning rights. And I think the one thing mayors agree upon, Democrat, Republican, Independent, is our right to our own zoning. And I think that is the biggest fear that we see at the local level.
So I want to level set really quick because you guys are getting into the meat of what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to use that opportunity to segue.
You're sitting with mayors.
Yeah, I know. I have to remember that. No, but let's level set because some people might be walking into this conversation and not really understand what we're talking about. So I'm going to start with you, Mark. Just at a really high level, talk about what is the housing bill that just was passed. It's A4S50, and who's requiring to build? What's happening with that bill?
So Fair Share Housing is behind the methodology, which goes into the A4 and S50 bills. Those two bills mandate that every town in New Jersey, except 62, which receive state monies, are not under the next mandate of affordable housing. Florham Park is part of a lawsuit against those 62 houses, or against the methodology used in coming up with the number for the total units that we built throughout the state of New Jersey. You can't dump 600 on Florham Park in round 3 and then have another 300 plus in round 4 and have it work. It just doesn't work that way. So those two bills, along with Fair Share Housing, and the courts are the ones that are coming up arbitrarily, I feel, and using data that's incomplete or wrong to come up with areas where housing can be built. This round, under round 4, we have never used what's known as a vacant land adjustment. And we had to do that because we don't have more land left to build affordable housing on, even though the state legislators and the affordable housing mechanism says we do. So I think that's a very big piece of this puzzle, to tell people that we're trying to build affordable housing for people because they deserve it. Right. But the at market rate, which is an 80-20 percentage, I don't know whether you knew that or not, 80% goes to market rate and 20% goes to affordable housing. The 80-20 rule does not work in every community. There's just not enough space to do that.
Is that for rentals for you too?
Rentals and or purchase.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because some towns it's 15% for rentals.
Not by me.
Okay. Excellent.
I push it to the limit. We actually built in our last round a product called supportive housing, and the supportive housing is for developmentally handicapped. Mm-hmm. It's a product that has 102 beds, and every bed counts as a unit towards our affordable housing mandate. And I preach this all over the county to other towns, that you should look into building a supportive housing product, because there's plenty of people who have children that are going to age out of school and have nowhere to go. And when their parents unfortunately pass away, what happens?
Right.
So those products are very good for that class of folks, and I'm very happy that we have it in our town.
Yeah.
Sorry to take so long.
No, it's excellent. And do you guys have any supportive housing, or what kind of housing are you focusing on?
We did pass a resolution for veteran housing, so that will be coming up. We still have 200 units yet to build from round 3, so that will be coming up in that set of units that's coming up. But just getting back to your question a little bit, this bill that the state blanketed the entire state with. How can you blanket the entire state with the same mandate? Figure out the percentages the same way, how everybody is, however many units each town has the same way, the green space, and then it's our responsibility as mayors or towns to fight that, right? And this space belongs to a VFW. It's not just vacant land, right? This space belongs here. It's not vacant land. So to have just the state without planners being involved, without local municipalities or mayors, whoever involved with this bill, and have certain groups at the table developing these bills without input from really the people
on the ground.
Yeah.
was really ludicrous in my opinion. So.
And I think that's the biggest concern with the 4th round, is the time period in which mayors and their communities had the opportunity to appropriately plan for things, as well as work with those in Trenton, because the issue is they make laws in Trenton and they do not consult us at the local level, and that's one of the biggest issues we have at New Jersey Conference of Mayors, and we're advocating for. I think everyone can agree affordable housing is a good thing. We all agree that affordable housing is needed in our communities, but the issue is how it's getting done and the overdevelopment attached to it. And there's a conversation that we need to have of what is responsible development, because you want growth in every community, correct?
Right.
And how that is going to be impacting our communities. So I think, as the mayors noted, the real issue is the methodology and how we got our calculations, and what is the end sight in all this, because they're already talking that we're going to have a 5th round in the next 10 years, of course. Right. And so maybe the conversation needs to get to how do we break the state out into regions that make most sense, north, south, central, because we do exist, shoreline, I don't know, but I really do think the goal needs to be we need to regionally plan for how we're putting these units in, and then at some point bring back the regional contribution agreements, and I think we'll get to that at another point of this problem.
You bring up a very good point, because I was going to talk about regional. When you hear people talk about affordable housing, they say the rollout is on all municipalities, but that is not necessarily true. And you sort of touched upon that, Mark, is that the urban aid communities are exempt from this bigger number, the 200,000 houses, units that need to be built, right? Right? So
Correct.
just to clarify that,
Yeah.
so urban aid towns do not need it. What is
So-
an urban aid town?
So those urban aid towns like Jersey City, like Weehawken, Hoboken, River's Edge, I believe, excuse me, is one of them. Those towns receiving that aid are not responsible for where there's transportation, there's jobs, and there's places for people to live. To build more affordable housing is a no-brainer in those areas. But they have circumvented the system in the fourth round, which to me is underhanded, excuse me.
Yeah.
It's underhanded. I think that it doesn't allow for our towns to get up to breathe. We're still 40% of what we were allotted in the third round has still not been built. Now, why does that happen? We have lawsuits between the town above us, Morris Township, that we fought for over 3 years to get the one set of units going in for that. We have the DEP and the FAA right by Morristown Airport for another product that still has not been built. The DEP stepped into another project where it's in a flood zone. We had to move its capabilities to another spot in town. So, you know, all these pieces moving all around always is not mentioned when the state legislators talk about this. We do have a few. I must give a lot of credit to Senator Bucco and to Senator Panaccio, who have all recommended both those RCAs to go out to other towns, and as well to Senator Bucco, who put a bill forward to hold off this next round for 3 years to 2028 to try and give the towns a minute to breathe. This round, and Jason brought it up earlier, to say they rushed all the timelines. They've made it so that we've had to jump through hoops to make resolutions at our council meetings to get all these products through, or we lose our immunity to builder's remedy. And what does that mean? Builder's remedy means they can come in and basically spot zone any piece of property that they want and build the amount of density that they want if we're not compliant with the court. Which is a
Which
really...
was originally, my understanding was the original Mount Laurel, that was illegal. That was not intentional for the bill, that they did not want spot zoning and that they wanted inclusion, that they wanted people to move into neighborhoods and,
Inclusionary is one thing.
right?
Spot zoning is another characteristic. What's happening is if you lose your immunity with the court, those developers or builders who have a project, we're being sued by 5 developers who are not part of our fourth round obligation. We're also being sued by Fair Share Housing for developing the plan that doesn't include those 5 developers. It's a very backwards kind of thing, and I think I told you that we have a small doctrine, a paper that we put together for our affordable housing mandate for the fourth round. It's absolutely obscene to think that we could build all of what those builders want to build. However, if we lose our immunity in the court, some of them will get their business built.
So if you lose immunity, builder's remedy, any developer could come in and build a 6-story, 7-story, 8-story.
Well, no, not that big.
Okay.
We'd have to have, the settlement would be based on fire, first aid, police, and our infrastructure. However, the properties that are in line for those 5 that I speak of are ones that could easily level complete office parks and build more than 40 units per acre versus where we allow 8 per acre in our town. So those are the objectives that I would have to a builder's remedy lawsuit.
Right. And regionalization, so you were touching upon that. So there are regional perspective need obligations for each region, but that's different from what Mayor Cilento is talking about. He's referring to the RCAs, which are the regional contributions, correct?
Correct.
Yes,
So,
okay.
so the RCAs
wanna
were
make it
developed
clear.
back
Yeah.
in the 80s, whereas municipalities who were unable to fulfill their obligation were able to send money of that kind to another community where there might be a Patterson where there's plenty of area that could be redeveloped, and Newark or Jersey City or or you name the city, where there are jobs and transportation. I said that earlier. It's paramount to note that when people move to Florham Park, they need to have 2 cars.
Right.
They're far away from the center of town in every aspect when we build the affordable housing project. So it's just unfair to people to come there and then have nowhere to work or be sitting in traffic for hours upon hours during the day. So,
And I think the RCAs can feasibly help protect some of our more rural communities, suburban communities that are out a distance from the metropolitan areas, like New York City or Jersey City or Newark. Even though we have a conversation about the RCAs, it doesn't mean that those communities might not be obligated to build affordable units. But it at least gives the opportunity for those units to be built instead of constantly having what these towns are seeing as unmet needs. I think we need to have the conversation of we'd rather see them built in towns that have the infrastructure and resources for them to be built and access to jobs, et cetera, than not be built at all. And then taking away, as we noted, open space, our farmland, what they're doing down in Cranberry. I think
Which is what? Just for the audience, what are they doing in Cranberry?
they're basically eminent domain on a farmland, historic property.
I've actually been there to Andy's farm and been to the uprising that happened over it. I have a client who's in the very next industrial park right next door to it, and to go there, it's like an area that has never been developed. It's a beautiful farm. They had beautiful animals that are used in a product down there. So, and now the town to pull an eminent domain on them is just unbelievable. And I don't believe Cranberry does not have an obligation in round 4. So why are they doing that?
I didn't realize that. Why are they doing that?
You'd have to ask that mayor. Have that
I didn't know
mayor
I could
on.
leave 3 mayors speechless.
Yeah, I
Have
can't
that
speak
mayor
to
on
that.
for the next show. But just to kind of piggyback on some of this stuff, I consider this an unfunded state mandate for density housing, right? So again, none of us have an issue, or my council has an issue with affordable housing. But let's build the affordable housing. Why do we have to build 4 or 5 market rate units that people can afford instead of just the affordable units, 4 and 5 story high buildings, so that the builders can profit on the product, right? Instead of really focusing on the need, they trick you a little bit in saying it's affordable housing. Okay, yeah, there's an affordable housing aspect, but you know what? Most of that aspect is market rate. So they're getting $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month apartments in there, $1 million plus condos and townhomes, and yes, there's a small percentage of that's affordable as well. So.
Do you think that, this answer is varied by the people that answer it. Do you believe that the luxury apartments, sort of this, I'm wondering if it'll be a glut at some point, but are they artificially driving up rents?
Well, I don't know. They're getting it, so it's only worth what you can get, right? So they continue to get these high rents, unaffordable to a lot, right? And again, why?
And what I mean by that is, so for example, you build a building and they are getting the rents $3,000 to $7,000, but now the little mom and pop that had a house that would rent a room or an entire house for $1,800, now they're like, well, this big luxury building is getting $7,000 for rent. So that sort of opens the door to artificially inflate the local economy. So that's what I'm curious about. And I'll say this, because I do want your answer. In a housing authority that I know of, a 2-bedroom is costing someone $2,700 a month. And so to me, that is not affordable. Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah, so I definitely see that. In my little 2-square-mile town, I see that the rents are here and then the housing rents have certainly gone up.
Right.
I mean, that's good and bad, right? But you're still pushing those rents up where somebody could be in a house with a yard with kids and everything, could be there for quite a while and afford it. And now they can't afford that stuff and maybe looking somewhere else. But yeah, artificially inflating the rents is for sure happening. Yeah.
Real estate in our region, particularly in Morris County, has gone through the roof. We have assessed homes that are in the 700s, and they're getting $1.3 million for them. And it's out of control, and that's what's causing some of what you're saying. It's supply and demand. People will pay because they have to, A recent project that was built, rental unit in our town, is $4,025 a month for a 2-bedroom unit. I don't know who can afford that. I certainly couldn't or wouldn't. And young people today, my own child and her husband, they've been trying to find a house for over 2 years now, and always bid out. The last time we thought we had the one that they were looking at, or they thought they had the one they were looking at, and they were the 16th highest bid.
Oh my goodness.
It's terrible to think what's going on.
So just getting back to your question, though, just the towns that touch Morris Plains, there's roughly 9,000 units going in, right? So getting back to your point about the glut, I asked this in the third round. When is the glut? Where is it going to be, and when's it going to happen? So that is a real concern.
Very good question.
Real concern. They're turning office buildings into apartment buildings, but what's going to happen when those apartment buildings aren't full? What are they going to? What's going to be the next step after that? But there has to be a balance here.
Yeah, no one thought 2008 would happen, right?
Yeah.
So there's always cycles.
Right.
I want to segue to infrastructure because you guys have very real life examples of the impact that overdevelopment causes in terms of infrastructure. So I'll start at this end of the couch and work my way. I'd love some examples of what strain is overdevelopment causing your towns.
So all this development certainly strains infrastructure, services, all that stuff. But one in particular is we were in a MUA with 4 of the municipalities for our water authority, and we're sued by Harding Township for a development for their affordable aspect, but it turned out to be 300 units, 2 of theirs. We didn't want to supply them water. Our 4 municipalities that are part of the MUA, we have our own responsibilities and our own residents now that we have to look out for. Ultimately, we lost because if you have it, you have to provide it, right? So here we are, taking our resources and giving it to another municipality or another development outside of the original intention for the MUA. So we had to buy a $1.5 million fire truck a couple years ago. So all these things add up. We had to add police to our police force. So, 2, but I'm 7,000 residents, so two cops, that's a lot, right? So you add all these things up, and people wonder why their taxes are high. All this stuff, it's these mandates, supplying water to other municipalities because of their obligation, when we have our own people and obligations to worry about. So, yeah, it's a lot.
Mayor? I don't know if you had the same issues.
No, well, I would argue it's almost a catch-22, right? Because you want to have responsible and smart growth. You don't want to overdevelop. And in Dunellen, I believe we're not. We're keeping it to the skyline that historically Dunellen's been, which is 3 stories, retail on the bottom, around our train station. And I think, but for our town, a few of our properties were vacant or depreciating in value or had contamination. So through redevelopment, those are the properties we're really seeking out to really fix up and bring in some economic stimulus into our community. And so when I say it's a catch-22 in the sense of you have all this infrastructure you do need to improve, because historically in New Jersey, everything is over 100 years old, right? So even pre-development in our towns, it's old infrastructure. But our budgets are only so big. Utilities only take in so much revenue. And so for us, through redevelopment and some of the incentives we provided to the builders, we've been able to increase the revenue we have into our budget to be able to make sure we were reinvesting in our infrastructure, like our roads and our sewers and our stormwater. For example, one of our projects, it was an old factory, 19 acres, depreciating in value, basically vacant warehousing, and needed to be. It's right across the street from our train station. To date, every year we get $1.4 million in revenue versus the $295 we were getting previously, and that's with an incentive. But there's tools called the redevelopment area bonds that through that project we were able to get a force main that not only benefited that project, but a whole bunch of properties throughout the town, because it went through Washington Avenue. And without the economic incentive and that redevelopment area bond, that force main never would have been built. So I just think you have to be responsible in your approach to this, and you need to make sure that as you are building responsibly, these developers in some way are contributing back to your community. And so that's how we've been able to handle it through, they do capacity studies for the infrastructure that they're going to be using. If they're over capacity, that's where we find whether redevelopment area bond is going to be needed. They contribute to park improvements that we've had near the downtown, and they've contributed to pedestrian and traffic safety in our downtown. So I think in our approach as mayors and our pragmatic approach to responsible growth, we just have to hold the developers accountable and make sure what they're putting in makes sense for our community, but is also contributing back, not just through revenue, but community benefits in infrastructure improvements.
I often say to our council members, we are the victim of our own success. Our town has been very successful. We redeveloped a 640-acre property that was formerly the Exxon research property in Florham Park, and we brought over $700 million worth of new ratables, including the world-famous New York Jets to that property.
They're world famous.
They are world famous, yeah, absolutely. So with that development, we have had to up our mandates of our affordable housing units because we brought in those new entities, whether they be medical or housing or hotel, or we just built a new Del Webb property, which is 425 units of very high-end condos, townhouses, and standalone homes. So we're victims of our own successes, as well as the issues of, we talked about the infrastructures, where we're adding $16 million worth of upgrades to our sewer plant because we can't handle the amount of sewers that's coming in. We put on the new well that we talked about earlier, $5 million, and exceeding our limits by the DEP by over 10 million gallons in 1 month of July last year. So those things being all coupled together, it's all state mandate, state no pay.
Right.
They just push it on you and they really don't care. It is like trying to blow out an electric light bulb, literally. They just don't understand the factors that go into keeping a town both financially stable. Florham Park is a AAA bond rated town, and to do that you have to have finances behind you to keep it going. When I first started as mayor, we were paying down an enormous amount of debt. We're near zero debt today. I think it's important to note that we've worked very hard to get ourselves to a point, unlike the state of New Jersey, who is not in a good financial position. We are, and we need to move on. I have forecasted a 10-year plan for our budgeting, and I understand what this affordable housing is going to do, or this high-density housing, as I like to refer to it, is going to do to our budget in a 10-year period.
You bring up a really interesting point. I think sometimes overdevelopment has sort of tangled itself into the affordable housing conversation, because the bill is really what drove, the bill for affordable housing is what's driving the overdevelopment, because you have the luxury apartments that are connected to it. And so that's what makes the conversation so tricky, and that's what makes it political. And it's an interesting thing, because I don't think that development in of itself, affordable housing, anybody you talk to, the statistics show that people, they support affordable housing, but they don't want their towns overdeveloped. And when I was down in Atlantic City, I went to the Governor's Conference for Economic Development and Housing. Two common themes that I heard were, I would say, eliminating upzoning, which would be eliminating the single-family home zoning, which I can see how you feel about that already. And one of the other concepts I heard is exactly what you're talking about, is there's this intergovernmental conflict where you have the governor who is really saying, spearheading, we have to develop, but then there's these interagencies like DEP and DOT who are holding the projects up, so to speak, because the developers were there saying that they couldn't move fast enough. So, I don't know how to sort of detangle this, right? Yeah.
Well, I think the DEP would tell you right off the bat that there is not ample sewage treatment in this state to handle what they are professing would be the next round of affordable housing. There's no way to be able to accommodate all those people.
So play that forward. What does that mean for us? What does that look like?
It means that they don't care. They just build and build and build. They don't care about that. Jason and I, and I'm sure Jason as well, have all gone to the League of Municipalities many years. I stand before the legislators every year, and it's like talking to myself. They just don't. They one time they were laughing at me. I think you were there, Jason. You're going to build in your town, and we're going to get you more. And 3 weeks after the League of Municipalities last year is when they dropped the fourth round.
When they said nothing was going to happen.
Right. They said we're going to pause. We're going to look at this. 3 weeks after the League of Municipalities, they dropped round 4. They already had it in the can. It was already finished. So we were already doomed before we even knew we were doomed.
Got there, yeah.
Yep.
All right, so you guys chuckled with single-family zoning. So I really, the elimination of it, I do want to read this. So as of 2025, several states have passed laws effectively ending or significantly reducing single-family zoning, which include California, Oregon, Washington, Montana, Maine, and Vermont. And just doing the research for this conversation, there's a lot of research that says it's time to end single-family zoning. Essentially, the history is explicitly classist, is kind of where it all started from Mount Laurel, and understanding that we want to make sure that our communities are inclusive. I think we've changed a lot over the last 50 years, and it is really important to understand that our neighborhoods should not be exclusive. But the concern for me, as I start to research this, is that the end result is basically, where necessary, we need to abolish it.
No.
No.
Single-family housing, your single home is American dream.
Right.
I mean, that's what everybody worked towards. At least that's what I was brought up knowing.
Yeah.
Owning a home.
Yeah.
We have
Owning a home.
That's how you get equity.
We have currently 26 homes that are being torn down of their site that they're originally on, and a new one being built. And I assure you, anyone who's building those homes is building either twice or three times what was there, and it's a single-family home. If a builder, and I think everyone here would agree, came to us and said, we're going to build you a product that's going to be 3 units over parking. It's all going to be affordable units. I would say, come on down. We're ready to build. Because we do need to provide affordable housing for everyone and make it available. There's 8,000 people waiting on a list of the consultant that we use for our affordable housing. 8,000 people need housing. I don't disagree with that. But I do disagree with children like my daughter and her husband who make a pretty significant living and are unable, it's unaffordable for them to buy a home in the state of New Jersey, which is the American dream.
Right.
And I think it gets back to what they call the missing middle housing and workforce housing development. And I think what we need to be doing as mayors, and we're in discussions in Dunellen about for our first for sale affordable housing townhouses, is make sure as we move forward that we give opportunity for sale affordable units. And I think the state really needs to really back us on this.
And the builders are going to buck you as well. They don't want that.
They don't want it because the market is with the rentals.
Perpetual rental, that's what they want.
Yeah. So we really need to be at the forefront of that, because we need, as your daughter is the prime example of, we need to create the opportunity for them to get their foot in the door,
Yes.
have equity, and then be able to get into a single family house where they own and have significantly more equity. And I think that's where we got to be on the front line as mayors.
Agreed.
A house may not be for everybody, but you have to have something for everybody, right? So it is the American dream. Oh, I remember when I bought my first house, and your first step foot in that, you're like, oh wow, this is fantastic. This is what it's all about. So, and the middle income people are missing that right now. And how are you saving money? Not to interrupt, but $4,000 and $5,000, $3,000 a month rents. How are you saving money for the downstroke on these $1 million or 500,000 plus homes? It's just it's
Home ownership is the equity. It's generational wealth. It's the ability to send your child to school. It's the ability to send yourself to school if you need to, or anything.
Right.
It's really the opportunity, and as we noted, it's the American dream. So it's
a lot in my town. I'm sure in your towns as well. Though people come back, kids come back to town, right? So
we're all products of that, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
So they all come back, not all, but a lot come back, and they want to be in that town where they grew up and own a home and see and follow the footsteps of their parents or grandparents or whatever. I mean, and my fire department's 100% volunteer. There's 3 and 4 generations active in that fire department in town. So R1 stays.
And I would argue, I mean, you hear this a lot, it takes a village to raise children. So if you have a lot of transient in and out, then your community is not going to be quite as strong. And so I'm a big advocate for purchase. I think that we have to figure out, even if it's the affordable housing that is rent to buy, and also I will say that we are at risk. It's not just the state that is looking at our local zoning. I have an article here. It says the era of federal zoning reform has arrived. And I'm going to read this to you. The Bipartisan Road to Housing Act marks a historic breakthrough, passing committee unanimously. The bill includes provisions to streamline housing approvals, prioritize pro-housing transit investment, and most notably use federal incentives to encourage local zoning reform. So going through this, basically it says that the federal government is looking to insert themselves. So it's not just the state that is looking to do so that is going to change how single-family zoning looks in our towns. And I just want to.
Well, I hope on some of those committees that they invite some
Kicking
mayors
and
and some
screaming.
people to chime in,
But
for sure.
I think that it's a demonstration that the local towns are really the most important, but are losing their voice.
But
And it's not that you won't have a single-family home. What it will look like is that you won't have your neighborhoods with single-family homes. So you have a home, Jason, you sell yours, a developer buys it or a new homeowner, and they can turn it into a duplex, an apartment building, whatever zoning will exist. And I think that's what we're losing here. Do suburbs have a right? Do they have a right to exist today? Because from a federal and state level, I'm feeling that that we are losing our right to just have certain types of different housing for different needs. Because like yourself, Mayor, you said, I lived in the city, I've lived in Hoboken, in New York, and when we had kids, it was a choice to move out to a place where there was space. But at some point, we sold our house, we're renting again, and maybe I'll move back to the city. But it was a really nice opportunity to have a different type of lifestyle for my kids in the time that I wanted it. Is that disappearing?
I don't believe it is.
Okay.
I think that towns like Florham Park, towns like Morris Plains, towns like Dunellen, we're trying to instill that we are a community. And you'd be surprised the amount of people who I know personally and have known most of my life who still live in town, whose children can't come back to town. They can't afford it. And the developers come along, these builders, and a property that should sell for $500,000 and be let's go in and renovate it a little bit, sells for $800,000. They tear it down and build a new. There's one just listed, sold over $1 million. They tore it down. It's on the market for $2,999 million. And who can afford to live in that house?
That's crazy.
You're bringing a whole different character to our home, to our hometown, which I didn't grow up in. My parents moved to Florham Park in 1952 from Newark, and they thought this was going to be the suburb of the suburb. I remember my grandfather saying, "What the heck would you ever move out there for? It's in the middle of nowhere." Well, now the middle of nowhere is
somewhere.
populated.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
populated.
Yep.
Jason, you mentioned cottages because I think you're absolutely right. We're missing the middle, young professionals, young families, but for many towns, it's not included in the new affordable housing bill, right? So Newark can have middle housing, count towards types of housing, and they can get grants for it. But towns like yours, you exclude the middle housing. You don't get credit for it. Am I saying that right?
You're right. Yes.
Right? And so that's really, why aren't we addressing that?
I mean, in our redevelopment plan, we do in the sense of we use the language that says we encourage it, right? But it's not a part of the accreditation we get as affordable housing. I think if maybe a new governor and legislatures can come back and maybe help us through legislation or maybe towards a fifth round, but who knows where any of us will be in politics or in politics at all at that time. This could be a conversation, but I agree. I mean, we need to be able to have workforce development, housing development in the middle housing as an option as accreditation towards affordable housing. And I think it needs to also, again, make sense in where you're zoning it. So for Dunellen, we're only doing density living and cottage living. It's more smaller houses on a single property. It needs to be in areas that make sense around transit, around bus lines, around infrastructure. And so for us, the only zoning we have for that kind of density is in our downtown. Most of the rest of the town is only two families or single family zoning, and as long as I'm mayor, that's going to stay. And I think that's, again, gets back to the conversation. We have to be at the front line to protect our communities from what we say is overdevelopment. And where we do develop, it's in areas that make sense.
I kind of touched on it before, but mayors from different regions or different areas of the town have to be on some of these committees that make some of these laws, at least to bring a different perspective of, like you had said earlier, boots on the ground, and not just blanketing the whole state with the same kind of situation or statistics, whatever. So having mayors or professionals or somebody from different areas of the state should certainly be beneficial.
But Jason, that would be contrary to what they want, because they don't want any opposition to their plan.
Exactly.
One candidate running for governor has announced that there'll be 200,000 additional units of affordable housing under her plan. I think that the 120 that are already prescribed are way over the top and unattainable as a state. You see every single, we're in that planning zone 2, you see every single town that is in planning zone 2 has reduced their number and gone back to the court. Why would they do that? They can't accommodate it. And this force of bringing in more and more product is only going to, further density is not good for towns. Our school systems, our infrastructure, we talked about earlier, our police, fire, first aid. I mean, people have got to, wait in traffic now on Columbia Turnpike in Florham Park, where, it's a 2-lane each way highway, and people normally would fly right through there and get home to their families. Now they're sitting in traffic in the afternoons. Ridgedale Avenue, it's 4 traffic light changes to get through the center of town. And that's wrong.
And we could touch on New Jersey Transit as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Oh, boy.
But I think we also have
Talk
to
about a
remember,
boondoggle.
Well, you've been really working with New Jersey Transit. Do you want to?
I'll touch on that
you're
real
gonna
quick.
talk about that? Yeah.
So, but I'll say we're the state of home rule. So we have 564 municipalities, and each of our communities have our own identities in which people wanted to move there for, whether they're new residents or stay there like we have, because there's a charm to most New Jersey, basically all of New Jersey's towns. And so,
Truly.
but it gets back to the one-size-fits-all approach does not make sense, because we all have our own identities as communities, and that's the beauty, sometimes the burden of being in New Jersey, but really the beauty of our state. But New Jersey Transit, sorry.
Well, you know what? I feel like we're also putting the cart before the horse. I mean, we have a lot of infrastructure that's crumbling. Woodbridge actually just had a big crack in their road. Our trains and our buses don't show up on time. And so you've been working with the governor's office and various legislators because your train station isn't even outfitted for accessibility. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because if you're building, the intent is that you would be able to move people around on public transportation, and you can't even properly do that. So
and Dunellen's designated one of the, I think it's now 36 transit villages in the state. Our train stations from the 1950s, at the time, hold your seats, it was what was modern then, but now it just looks like a bunker, unfortunately. And again,
vintage.
It's not accessible, it's not modernized, and there's 160 train stations just like that. Meanwhile, NJ Transit's having the conversation of a $500 million corporate center in Newark. You know how many train stations you could fix? I think ours is about 60 million. I think you can probably have 9, 10, probably in that number, maybe a little bit more. But yeah, we've been advocating for a new train station, an updated train station, and part of that argument to the governor, to President Karr, and our state legislatures and federal legislatures, because it always takes federal funding, has been we've bought into transit-oriented development around our train station. Again, we keep the skyline to what our town has historically been, but we still have bought into it. But yet, people who are moving in for the train station and people historically who have been using our train station, beyond those just who have been moving in, there's accessibility issues, there's lighting issues. It's depreciating in value itself, but our downtown. And so as a part of an economic means, my argument is the train station needs to be updated. And it's been an ongoing conversation since 2020 when I assumed office. But it's something that I, as mayor, am going to continue to advocate for my municipality. And I believe the other 100 and some odd mayors that have their train stations that are not modernized, they need to be continuing to advocate for their towns too.
So
it's inappropriate.
Despite a reach out for many, many years, I have never spoken to the governor of the state, Murphy, not once. I have spearheaded many projects with the DOT, and they've been very, very cooperative with us. the inside front office of the governor's office. We have a person there who's been very, very helpful for us doing projects. There's over 400 bridges in the state of New Jersey that are not in disrepair. They are functionally disabled, and we're still driving on them. So the state's infrastructure, along with each municipality's problem, is a big issue.
It absolutely is. So we've wound down on our time.
Oh, boy.
I can't
Are you
even,
sure?
I know. I'd like to go another hour, actually.
I thought we were
But
going to get a pizza and continue.
30 seconds. Any advice to people out there listening in the audience? Is there any information you want them to walk away with today?
I think that people should get involved. Come to meetings, understand what we have to go through as a municipality, and get involved. I think volunteerism is at an all-time low in municipalities, and we need to upgrade that and have people get involved.
I would just ask residents to keep in mind that mayors and their councils are in a position of trying to be pragmatic in their approach. You know, we want growth, we want reasonable growth. As I said, I feel like we're doing that in Dunellen. But I would suggest whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or Independent, the Assembly's up for re-election this year. I would ask them, what is your view on overdevelopment, affordable housing, how it's impacting our communities, and listen to their answers. And if you don't like their answers, if you have a voting pattern, maybe go against it once in your life and vote for the opposition who is saying, no, we support growth, but we have to have a conversation about what appropriate growth is for our state.
Pay attention. Really pay attention. A lot of this stuff gets done and nobody hears or knows about it. And you really have to pay attention, do your homework, come to meetings as they said, but you know, like they were saying, we're making this work, right? We're putting the affordable housing in, we're making it work, but there's a reason why we're doing that. First, we want affordable housing, but we have to, right? So, but people really have to pay attention, be careful who you vote for, listen to what they have to say. If they have a track record, look at their track record, but really get involved, because people are dangling out here, and then all of a sudden, now you got a 5-story building 2 doors down, right? And they, like I said before, they're asking why, where's the traffic coming from, how come this, how come you have to upgrade the sewer plant? So paying attention is probably the number one thing I could say.
Go beyond the headlines, too.
Correct.
Show up at
Yep.
meetings.
Correct.
Right?
That's right.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you for joining us today. I hope this conversation has illuminated just how crucial mayors are in shaping the future of our communities. From steering smart growth and fostering economic opportunity, meeting affordable housing goals, safeguarding the environment, representing constituents, to navigating the mounting costs of infrastructure. Mayors are at the front line of every decision that touches every aspect of our daily lives. The central question isn't just about the pace of development across New Jersey, but it's about how its long-term direction will go. As more towns embrace upzoning, will single-family neighborhoods gradually give way to futures dominated by apartments and rentals? If so, how will individuals and families build long-term generational wealth? Will increased supply eventually surpass demand to the point where rents and housing prices actually do fall? That outcome seems distant in a state that consistently ranks among the least affordable in the nation, where the broader cost of living undermines even well-intentioned affordable housing goals. The challenge is layered, and affordability isn't solely about zoning or unit counts, but it's also about wages and infrastructure and local fiscal responsibilities. As municipalities prepare to certify their 4th-round housing numbers by year's end, the real test will be whether policy can keep pace with economic and social pressures, or whether affordability in New Jersey will be elusive or achievable. But what we do know is we have to keep this dialogue going. I'm Lisa Allen. This is Blueprints and Barriers, sponsored by Jersey First. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.